Welcome back to the Olive Grove podcast, y'all. You know we like to dig into those scriptures, right, and uncover some of those nuggets of wisdom.
Absolutely.
And today we're going deep dive into Zechariah chapter 3.
Yeah.
It's a pretty wild chapter.
It is.
Full of imagery.
Lots of imagery.
And a lot of really cool theological truths. So
Yes.
Buckle up. Let's get into it.
Yeah, what's so interesting about this chapter, it's actually the sixth in a series of 8 visions that Zechariah receives. And these visions, they're like snapshots, into the spiritual realm, revealing God's plans and purposes for his people. And this one in particular, I think we see this incredible picture of God's grace, specifically for Israel.
Yeah, and speaking of these snapshots, right? This, I don't know, it's cinematic,
Nice.
like right out of the gate. We're in a heavenly courtroom.
Right.
Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this kind of shadowy figure there called the accuser.
Right.
And he's lurking around, ready to just throw down some accusations.
Yeah.
What jumps out to you about that scene?
Well, I think the tension is palpable, right? I mean, you can just you can feel it in the air, the weight of these accusations. But even before the accuser can say anything, God himself steps in and rebukes him. And I think it's just a beautiful picture, that God is ready to defend his people.
Always,
Even when they're facing condemnation.
Absolutely, and it just highlights how much he loves them, how committed he is to his people, to his chosen people. But then it gets really interesting because the text describes Joshua as being clothed in filthy garments.
Yeah.
Just not a pretty sight.
Yeah.
So what's the significance there? What does that mean, especially for the high priest?
Yeah. Well, the high priest, he was the only one who was allowed to enter into the Holy of Holies once a year on Yom Kippur to make atonement for the sins of the whole nation.
Right.
But here he is, covered in filth. He couldn't possibly stand in God's presence like that.
Yeah.
It was a picture of complete unworthiness.
Right. So it's more than just like physical dirt, right? It represents his spiritual state.
Yeah.
Being unable to atone not only for himself,
Right.
but for all of Israel.
Exactly. And I think that's where we see the power of grace, right?
Mm-hmm.
This vision, it's just a stark reminder that we, like Joshua, are just inherently flawed. We're not capable of bridging the gap between ourselves and a holy God. We're all in need of divine intervention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thankfully, that's exactly what we get.
Yeah, we do.
God doesn't just leave Joshua in this mess.
Right.
He completely transforms him.
He does. The angel of the Lord commands that those filthy garments be removed. And Joshua is clothed in fine robes, right?
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful picture of what God does for us through Christ.
Right.
It takes away our sin, our shame, and clothes us in his righteousness, and and makes us worthy to stand before him.
I love that image of being clothed in righteousness.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful reminder that it's not about us.
Right.
Our standing before God is not based on our own efforts or our good deeds.
Right.
It's because of what Christ did for us.
Right.
But it doesn't just stop there.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There's also this part where they put a clean turban on his head.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really significant detail because the turban represents a renewed mind, a transformed heart. It signifies repentance, a turning away from sin and toward God.
Right.
But what's incredible is that even that change of heart, that repentance, it's a gift from God.
Yeah. That's such a profound thought. Like it just blows the whole idea out of the water that we can earn our way,
Right.
Like we can somehow be good enough to be clean.
Right.
It's all grace.
Absolutely. It is all grace from beginning to end.
From beginning to end, yeah. And this grace doesn't just like transform us, on the inside.
Right.
It calls us to do something.
It does.
It calls us to action.
Yeah.
To a life of obedience and service. And that's where we see God giving Joshua specific instructions, right? It's like, okay, you've been cleansed, you've been renewed. Now here's what I want you to do. Here's your mission.
Exactly. God tells him, if you walk in my ways, you obey my commands, you judge my house fairly, and you guard my courtyards, you will have free access among these who are standing here.
Right.
So it's a call to faithful service.
Right.
A life lived in reverence and obedience to the Lord.
Yeah. And there's such a beautiful promise attached to that, right? It's not just rules and obligations.
Yeah.
It's like there's a reward for this.
Yeah.
There's a place of honor.
Right.
You have access to being in God's presence.
That intimacy.
Yeah.
That closeness with the Lord.
Yeah.
I think that's an invitation for all of us, to think about, like, how does walking in God's ways lead to a deeper relationship with Him?
Yeah.
How can we live out that call to faithful service in our own context?
Right. Yeah. And thinking about that, I mean, it makes me think about the My Christian Space community.
Yeah.
And just all the work that Enduring Freedom Ministries is doing.
Right.
Bringing hope and healing all over the world.
Yeah.
It's incredible what they're doing. I mean, they're not just talking about it.
No.
They're actually doing it.
Yeah.
They're living it out. They're demonstrating God's love.
Yeah, in really tangible ways.
Absolutely. And one of the things that they're doing that really stands out to me, especially in light of this passage, about caring for God's house and providing for those in need, they're working to establish a food pantry in Jerusalem.
Wow.
A city that's so central to the story of our faith.
Yes, absolutely.
And what a practical way to extend God's grace and compassion.
Yeah.
To people who are struggling, who are in need.
It really is. It's inspiring to see, to see them really live out this passage in such a tangible way. Imagine the impact of providing food support to those in need in the very city where Jesus walked.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
It's powerful.
Yeah. And, if you feel led to support this project, you can find all the information on the My Christian Space website. We'll put a link in the show notes, too. But let's get back to our deep dive into Zechariah chapter 3, because there's another layer here that we got to unpack. It's this prophecy about the branch.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where things get really, really interesting.
Yes, they do.
So let's jump into that.
So we were talking about the branch, right? This mysterious figure that's prophesied to come from the line of King David.
Right.
It's a title that's like loaded with messianic expectations pointing forward to the coming of Jesus.
It's like the seed of hope planted right in the middle of all this, this judgment and grace.
Right.
But there's another element here that's connected to this prophecy that I think is it's pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
This engraved stone with 7 eyes.
Ah, yes, the stone.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, it's like a hidden key, I think, that unlocks a deeper understanding of this whole prophecy.
Right.
In ancient times, stones were often used as symbols of authority or identity.
Okay.
Like a signature, almost.
Right.
So in this case, the stone, it represents the Messiah, the coming king.
Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah.
But those 7 eyes, what's that all about?
That's a lot of eyes for one stone.
It is a lot of eyes.
Well, in biblical numerology, 7 often represents completeness or perfection.
Okay.
So those 7 eyes on the stone, they symbolize the Messiah's complete knowledge, his all-seeing nature.
Oh, wow.
So it's telling us that nothing is hidden from his sight.
That's kind of daunting, to think that Jesus sees everything.
Everything.
Knows everything, even like the darkest parts of our hearts.
He does.
Yeah.
It can be unsettling, but it's also incredibly comforting.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, this whole vision is ultimately about grace. Yes, Jesus sees our sin, but he also came to remove it.
Mm-hmm.
The prophet goes on to say that God will remove the guilt of this land in a single day.
And that single day points to the cross, right? To the sacrifice of Jesus.
On the cross, Jesus took on the full weight of our sin, all the guilt and shame that we carry.
Yeah.
He became the ultimate atonement, the perfect sacrifice that cleanses us once and for all.
So this whole vision that starts with Joshua, the high priest,
right,
standing there condemned and unclean.
Yeah.
It ultimately leads us to Jesus.
It does.
The true high priest who came to cleanse us, to make us righteous in God's eyes.
That's right.
Man, that's a beautiful picture of redemption.
It really is. And it doesn't stop there.
The
vision concludes with a promise of peace, a shalom that will permeate every aspect of life under the Messiah's reign.
So tell me more about this promise of peace. I mean, I think it's especially relevant today,
Yeah.
in our world. That's just like full of conflict and division.
Well, the Hebrew word shalom, it means so much more than just the absence of war or conflict.
Okay.
It's this holistic concept
Mm-hmm.
that speaks of wholeness, completeness, harmony in every dimension of life.
Wow.
It's the kind of peace that the world it can't give. Only
Right.
Jesus can offer that.
So it's not just like inner peace
No.
or peace between, two people.
It's bigger than that.
It's like cosmic peace.
It is cosmic peace.
It affects like our relationship with God, with ourselves,
Yeah.
with each other,
Yes.
with creation.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's a vision of the kingdom of God breaking into this broken world,
Mm-hmm.
bringing healing and restoration to every part of our lives, our communities.
Yeah.
It's really a beautiful picture of what God desires for his people.
Mm.
And it's a promise that we can hold on to, even in the midst of all the craziness.
Absolutely. But as we're talking about this vision of peace, it makes me wonder, like, how are we supposed to live this out?
Yeah.
We're followers of Jesus.
Right.
How are we called to be a part of this shalom? What does that look like, practically speaking?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that we'll continue to explore as we go deeper into the book of Zechariah.
Okay.
But for now, let's just take a moment to reflect on what we've seen so far.
Right.
This chapter, I mean, with all this vivid imagery and this profound message, it just offers so much for us to really ponder.
You're right. What stands out to you as the most significant takeaway? Like, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from Zechariah chapter 3?
For me, it's just this reminder that God's grace is always greater than our mess. No matter how stained or unclean we feel.
Yeah.
God is always ready to cleanse us, to clothe us in his righteousness, and to give us a new start.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just stop there.
Yeah.
Right. He calls us to walk in his ways, to be agents of his peace in a world that desperately needs it.
That's so important, especially today. You
Right.
know, like we're just, I mean, it's everywhere you look.
Yeah.
This message that you got to earn your worth.
Right.
That you got to clean up your act
Yeah.
before you can be accepted.
Before God will love you.
Yeah, exactly.
But this passage, it just flips that whole thing on its head. It says
Mhm.
it's not about our performance.
It's about his grace.
It's about his grace.
Yeah.
It's about surrendering to his transformative power and letting him make us into the people he created us to be.
Yeah. And that transformation
Yeah,
always leads us outward,
it does.
to a life of service and love.
Yeah.
It compels us to be peacemakers, to be bridge builders, to be, reflections of his grace in a world that's just like shrouded in darkness.
Yeah, that's good.
And that brings us back to that beautiful promise of shalom, right?
Mhm.
That vision of wholeness and harmony that we were talking about.
Yes.
It's a reminder that true peace, it's not something we can like make happen on our own.
No.
It's a gift
It's a gift.
from God.
Yeah,
It flows from his heart to ours and then outwards to everyone around us.
absolutely.
Man, that's good.
It's like we become vessels,
Mm-hmm.
allowing God's peace to flow through us and out into the world,
Yeah.
touching lives, transforming communities.
I love that image. It
Yeah.
speaks to like the power of just these little acts of kindness.
Yes.
Just choosing to be a presence of peace
Right.
in a world that's like, so chaotic and overwhelming.
Yeah, those small acts, they can have a profound ripple effect. They can create this chain reaction of kindness and compassion that spreads like way beyond our immediate circle.
Yeah.
They can be seeds of shalom, planted in the hearts of others.
Wow.
Seeds that have the potential to grow into something truly transformative.
Man, as we're talking about this vision of peace and the call to be peacemakers, it makes me think about the work of Enduring Freedom Ministries
Yeah.
and their initiative to establish that food pantry in Jerusalem.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of how faith can be put into action,
Mm-hmm.
how we can actually demonstrate God's love and care
Right.
for those in need.
It's powerful.
It's powerful.
Like this is what shalom looks like,
Yes, it is.
It's not just some like internal state of mind. It's something that we do.
Mhm.
It's meeting practical needs. It's building bridges.
Yeah.
It's creating spaces where people feel seen and valued and loved.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what they're doing with this food pantry. They're not just providing food for those who are hungry.
Right.
They're creating this space of welcome, a place where people can experience the tangible love of Christ.
Wow. It's a beautiful expression of the shalom that we're talking about, you know. It's that wholeness, you know, that physical, emotional, spiritual well-being.
Yeah.
And if you feel led to be a part of this story, you know, to join this movement of shalom, we encourage you to support this project.
Absolutely.
You can find all the information on the My Christian Space website.
Yeah.
You know, every contribution, no matter how small, it can make a real difference in people's lives.
It can. It's an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, you know, to bring God's peace and provision to those who need it most.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Olive Grove podcast. We've been kind of unpacking this vision of shalom, right? This peace that goes beyond our circumstances, you know, that just kind of permeates every aspect of.
Yeah. It's that deep peace that the world it longs for, you know?
Yeah.
But it can't offer it.
Right.
It's a peace that's rooted in a right relationship with God, a peace that comes from a heart that's been transformed by his grace.
And you know, it's interesting, right? Because we try to do that, don't we?
We do.
We try to create peace in our own lives.
Yeah.
You know, through our own efforts,
Right.
our own striving.
By our own strength.
But this passage, it's suggesting something totally different.
Yeah, it is.
It's like true peace, lasting peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gift.
It's not something you earn.
Yeah, it's not something we achieve.
Right.
It's something that's given to us.
It's bestowed upon us, freely given.
So it's about recognizing that we're not the ones in control, you know,
Or not.
of creating peace.
It's not our job.
Yeah. Our role is to be open to it.
Right.
To receive it.
Be receptive.
Yeah, absolutely.
To let God give us that peace.
And when we do that, when we open our hearts to receive his peace, that's when we become conduits of it.
That's what allows us to be peacemakers in a world that is so hungry for it, for reconciliation, for healing.
Yeah. We become like these vessels, you know.
We do.
Just allowing God's peace to flow through us out into the world.
Yes.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It is.
And it's a good reminder that being a peacemaker, it's not just being passive, right?
Yeah.
Or avoiding conflict. It's about actually engaging.
It's about, leaning into the brokenness of the world, bringing the light and love of Christ,
right?
You know, into those dark places.
Yeah.
And allowing his grace to mend what's been broken.
So it's seeking reconciliation, you know?
Yes.
In relationships.
In our families.
Speaking up against injustice, you know, advocating for those who are marginalized.
Right.
Or even just like a kind word to someone who's hurting.
Just a smile, a hug, you know, those little things.
You know, embodying the compassion of Jesus in every interaction.
Yeah, allowing his peace to radiate out from us, you know, like ripples on a still pond.
I love that analogy
Right.
because it speaks to the power of those little things, right?
As it does.
Those little acts of kindness.
Those intentional choices to just be peace.
Yeah.
In a world that's you know, so often just crazy.
And those little things, they could have a big impact.
They can.
You know, they can start this chain reaction.
They can.
Of kindness and compassion that spreads way beyond us.
It's like that butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
One little thing can change the world.
Wow.
You know, so be that change.
And as we're talking about this, you know, this vision of peace.
Yeah.
This call to be peacemakers. You know, it makes me think again about the work of Enduring Freedom Ministries,
right.
and this food pantry that they're working to establish in Jerusalem. It's just such a beautiful example.
It's a tangible expression of what we're talking about.
Yeah, of what shalom is.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just in our heads.
Right.
It's something that we do. It's showing God's love.
Yes.
In real and practical ways.
Absolutely.
And that's what they're doing.
They're meeting needs. They're building bridges. They're creating these spaces where people feel loved and valued.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, right?
That is.
Isn't that what we're called to do?
That's it.
To love our neighbors as ourselves.
To be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Yeah. To be that tangible expression of his love.
To be the answer to someone's prayer.
Yeah. And if you feel led to be a part of this story, to join this movement of shalom.
Yeah, absolutely.
We encourage you to support this project.
Yeah, jump in, get involved.
You can find all the information on the My Christian Space website.
We'll put a link in the show notes too.
Yeah. And every little bit helps.
It does.
Every contribution, no matter how small, it can make a difference.
A real difference in people's lives.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Zechariah chapter 3.
Yeah.
I hope that you, our listeners, are leaving with a sense of hope, a sense of possibility, that true peace, that lasting shalom.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It is possible.
For ourselves and for the world.
It starts with us.
It starts with us.
Allowing God to work in our own hearts, to cleanse us, to renew us, to fill us with his peace.
And then it flows out from there.
Right.
As we become those instruments of his grace.
Yes.
As we embrace that calling.
Absolutely.
To be peacemakers, to be those agents of reconciliation.
Yeah, to be the light in the darkness.
Yeah, to be the bearers of that shalom that only he can give.
And he's given it to us.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Zechariah chapter 3.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
We pray that it's been encouraging, that it's been inspiring, and that you'll continue to explore the scriptures with us here at the Olive Grove Podcast.
Absolutely.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
And visit the My Christian Space website.
Yes.
You can find early access to new episodes there, and a ton of other resources to help you grow in your faith.
Absolutely. And until next time, may the peace of Christ, that shalom that surpasses all understanding, be with you all.